My name is Eleanor Reid. I'm 68 years old, and for most of my life, I've known what it means to be the first phone call. First one the school would call when Lucas scraped his knee. First one the neighbors would ring when they saw him climb too high in a tree. First one the hospital called when they rushed him in after his first car accident, because I was the one who raised him, nursed him, fought for him. But last month I sat in a hospital lobby for 3 hours, knees aching, heart pounding, waiting for any news about my son. And when I finally approached the nurse's station, trembling, trying to keep the fear from swallowing me whole, the young woman behind the desk looked up and said plainly, "I'm sorry, you're not listed as the emergency contact anymore." I thought she was mistaken. "No, baby," I said, voice soft but sharp like I was still teaching third grade. "Check again. Eleanor Reid. That's his mama. I've always been his emergency contact." But she shook her head and said, "It's a Mrs. Morgan Clarendon, his mother-in-law." And just like that, in a sterile hallway under two bright lights, my world shifted sideways. They had changed it, he had changed it, and I hadn't even known. I walked out of that hospital with a tightness in my chest I couldn't name. Not anger, not yet, not even hurt. Just a vast, echoing hollowness, like a room that used to hold music now sat empty, forgotten. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel like it could hold me together. The engine hummed. My hands shook. Somewhere down the hall, my only child, the man I had given everything for, had chosen another woman's mother over the one who had bled for him. And in that quiet hum of my old Toyota, I began to replay the last year, every missed call, every short visit, every moment I brushed off thinking he's just busy, she's just overwhelmed. It'll pass. But it hadn't passed. It had settled, like dust over a photo you don't look at anymore. That night I didn't sleep. Not a wink. My bones ached in that special way they do when sorrow settles somewhere deeper than muscle. I laid awake wondering when I'd gone from being his everything to being nothing at all. And that was when the other memory crept back in. The real beginning of the unraveling. The day the doctors said the words, autoimmune bone marrow failure. The day he needed a donor. And the day I said, "Test me. I'll do it. I'll save my baby." Before I continue, I want to ask all of you to please give a like to this video and subscribe to my channel, The Silent Stories, for more stories like mine. Your support means the world to me. Also, I'd love to know where you're watching from, so drop a comment telling me which country you're tuning in from. It's incredible to see how far this community of wonderful people has grown, and I'm so grateful to be able to share my story with you. I was born in 1957 in Jackson, Mississippi, in a shotgun house with three sisters, a rusted fan, and a Bible that never gathered dust. My mama worked at the diner, my daddy drove trucks. We didn't have much, but we had pride, the kind that came from honest work, ironed collars, and showing up when it mattered. I became a mother young, 22 and alone, after Lucas's father disappeared like so many promises men made in their 20s. I didn't cry long, there was no time. I had mouths to feed, even if it was just one, and a soul to raise. So I traded in dreams of nursing school for a job at the elementary school cafeteria, then the front office, then secretary. 30 years later, I was the administrative backbone of Jefferson Middle. I knew every student's name and every teacher's secrets. But my greatest job was being Lucas's mama. I raised him on casseroles made from coupons and bedtime stories made from grit. I made him memorize Langston Hughes, count blessings at dinner, and learn the difference between being nice and being kind. He was my joy, my work, my Sunday mornings, and my Saturday afternoons. When he graduated top of his class, tall, proud, wearing that crooked grin that always meant trouble, I sat in the front row and clapped so loud it echoed in heaven. And when he met Morgan, I welcomed her. She was polished, pretty, the type of girl with salon nails and a calendar full of brunch dates. A little high-strung, but I figured that boy was so easygoing he needed someone to keep him in check. At first, she was sweet. Always Miss Reid. This and let me help you with that. But over time, her kindness thinned like cheap cloth. She stopped calling me when Lucas was sick, stopped inviting me over for dinner, Still, I told myself, give it time, she's just adjusting. But I never adjusted to being forgotten. When Lucas fell ill, tired all the time, bruising too easily, fainting at work, the diagnosis was as cruel as it was confusing. A rare condition, they said, a disorder of the marrow. His body wasn't producing enough red blood cells, a silent collapse, cell by cell. He would need a transplant. The wait list was brutal. Matches were rare. Without hesitating, I said, run my test. I didn't care how old I was. I didn't care about the risks. My bones had carried him before. They could carry him again. And when they said I was a match, I thanked God through tears. That surgery was no joke. Recovery at my age was slow, aching, humbling, but I did it. For him. So when the hospital nurse said I wasn't listed as his emergency contact, I felt a part of me, deeper than my bone marrow, snap clean in two. After everything, I wasn't even next of kin. It started with little things. Lucas, always sharp, began forgetting where he'd parked. He'd brush it off with a laugh, but I could see the unease flicker in his eyes. Then came the bruises, dark patches blooming on his arms and legs with no explanation. He'd wake up with a nosebleed or bleed longer than he should from a small cut. He looked tired all the time, like the light inside him had dimmed. You working too hard? I asked him one Sunday after church when he came by and barely touched his plate. I'd made oxtail and collard greens, his favorite. He picked at it like it was punishment. Morgan keeping you on them salad diets again. He smiled, weak and worn. I think I'm just low on iron, Mama. I'll get checked. But he didn't. Not for weeks. It wasn't until he collapsed in the parking lot of his office building that they rushed him to the ER. That night the call came. It was Morgan, frantic and short of breath, like her panic was more important than my understanding. They're running tests, she said. They don't know yet. It's serious. I arrived at the hospital before she did. The tests came back slowly, each one tightening a noose around hope. At first they said it might be anemia, then maybe leukemia. Finally, after more blood work and a painful bone marrow biopsy, they gave it a name, severe aplastic anemia. His immune system had gone haywire, attacking his own stem cells. His bone marrow was failing. Without healthy marrow, there were no red cells, no white cells, no platelets. He couldn't fight infection. He couldn't clot. He couldn't survive. The room went quiet when the doctor said, he needs a transplant, soon. I remember Lucas's face, that hollow fear in his eyes. He looked at me like a child again, like the boy who'd once woken from a nightmare and climbed into my bed, whispering, don't let the monsters get me, Mama. I had nodded then. I nodded now. We'll find a donor, Morgan said quickly, already pulling out her phone like the right contact could save him. But I was already stepping forward. Test me, I said. The doctor blinked. Miss Reid, most donors are. I said test me. I gave him life once. I'll do it again. They ran the match screen that same week. And wouldn't you know, I was perfect. Not just a good match. A perfect one. Rare, the doctor said. Remarkable. I wasn't surprised. God doesn't deal in coincidence. Lucas didn't say much that night. He just held my hand in the darkened hospital room, his fingers thinner than I remembered, his eyes wet. Mama, he whispered. Thank you. I squeezed back. Rest, baby, I told him. We've got a long road ahead. I didn't know then how true those words would be, not just for him, but for me too. The day of the transplant was gray and humid, the kind of southern morning where the clouds hang low like gossip. I arrived early like I always did. That's how I raised Lucas, to be 5 minutes early and 10 times prepared. The hospital hallway smelled like lemon floor wax and nerves. I'd worn my best scarf, the burgundy one with the gold trim. It made me feel strong, whole. They took us in separately. I kissed Lucas on the forehead before the nurses wheeled him away. His hand was cold. His eyes held that quiet kind of fear that doesn't scream but sinks. See you on the other side, I whispered. He nodded. Don't do anything dramatic, Mama. I smiled. Too late. The procedure itself wasn't how most people imagine. They didn't cut me open. They stuck long hollow needles into my pelvic bone and drew out the marrow, thick and red, life-giving. I was awake for most of it, but drugged just enough not to scream. Still, I felt it. Deep, raw, like something sacred was being taken from me. And in a way it was. When it was over, I was wheeled into recovery, aching in places I didn't know could ache. The nurse brought me ice chips and said Lucas was doing fine. They'd already infused the marrow. His body, weak as it was, had welcomed it. I smiled through the pain. That was all I needed to hear. The days after were hard. I couldn't walk without help. The bruising was deep and angry across my lower back. I couldn't sit without flinching. At night I'd lie on my side, in my little recliner, breathing through the soreness and whispering prayers. Let it grow inside him. And it did. Lucas bounced back faster than anyone expected. Within weeks his color returned. His energy returned. He smiled again, laughed again. He'd walk into my house, arms full of groceries, insisting on cooking dinner. He'd sit beside me, scrolling through pictures of places he and Morgan planned to visit once he was fully cleared to travel. "Mama," he'd say, "I feel better than I have in years." It was like watching spring bloom in a field that had long laid barren. But something else changed too. Morgan grew quieter around me. She stopped coming to my appointments. When I asked for help getting a physical therapist to the house, she said they were tight on cash. Lucas seemed different too, always distracted, his phone never out of reach. Still, I brushed it off. I told myself they were busy, focused on the future. Young people move fast. I didn't see the slow drift, like a boat slipping from its moorings, until one day I woke up and realized I hadn't heard from either of them in over a week. My body still ached. My fridge was empty. And my son, the one I'd nearly broken my spine to save, had simply stopped calling. I noticed the shift before I admitted it. It started in the silences, the unanswered texts, the visits that got shorter, the hugs that grew stiff like someone had wrung the warmth out of them. Lucas had always been my boy, even when he was grown, even after he married Morgan. He'd call me every Sunday morning like clockwork. "You up, Mama?" he'd ask. "What you cooking today?" But after the transplant, after he started healing, those calls dried up like rain in July. Suddenly, Morgan was always planning something. She became the gatekeeper, smiling with her mouth and not her eyes, always promising, "We'll drop by soon," but they rarely did. Then one day I stopped by their place. It was the first time I'd seen the inside in months. The house looked different, colder. Their wedding photos were still up, but now Morgan's mother's face was everywhere too. On the mantle, in the hallway, even on a framed portrait above the piano I didn't know they owned. "Priscilla's been staying with us a lot lately," Morgan said as she caught me staring. "She's such a help to Lucas, really keeps him grounded." I raised my brow but didn't speak. What I wanted to say was, where was she when he was dying? When he couldn't even walk to the bathroom without help? Where was she when I gave up my marrow? But I kept my lips sealed. Years of being a black woman in a white hospital system had taught me this. Sometimes silence was your sharpest blade. The worst came a week later. Lucas had a follow-up appointment. I called the hospital to check if the time had changed, since he hadn't responded to my messages. That's when the receptionist said it. "I'm sorry, Miss Reid, but you're not listed as his emergency contact." I blinked. "Come again." The woman on the phone hesitated. "It says here, Morgan Clarendon, and her mother. You're not on the file." I thanked her and hung up slowly. My hand shook as I lowered the phone, not out of rage, not out of pain, but from a hollow, deep cold, a kind of grief that doesn't make noise, only leaves behind a silence so sharp it cuts. I wasn't even on the list. Not after the blood, the bruising, the nights alone in pain, whispering just let him live. They'd erased me, and that was when the questions began to crowd me. How long had I been pushed out? When did I go from mother to medical footnote? I'd given him a second chance at life, and he had used it to restructure his, without me in it. But I didn't cry. Not then. I just walked to my filing cabinet, pulled out the hospital folder from my surgery and opened it for the first time in months. Because if they were so quick to erase me, I needed to find proof I had ever mattered at all. The folder was thick, thicker than I remembered. It held every detail from the transplant, appointment logs, discharge forms, insurance documents, itemized receipts. Back when I first came home, groggy and weak, I just shoved it into the bottom drawer. I hadn't had the strength to read it. But now I opened it with hands that trembled not from pain, but from something harder, something sharper, determination. Page by page, I flipped through, highlighter in hand. Years of working in school administration had trained me well. I knew how to read through red tape. I knew how to spot a number that didn't add up. That's when I saw it. Under the insurance summary from Lucas's employer, a top-tier corporate health plan, there was a line item I hadn't noticed before. Donor recovery support stipend, $35,000. I blinked, then I read it again. This wasn't a loan. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a payment. A specific benefit granted to the donor, me, to cover the cost of my recovery. Home care, physical therapy, transportation, specialized equipment, lost wages, meals. The insurance had sent the check directly to the policyholder to be distributed for the benefit of the donor. I checked the disbursement section. The check had been issued 2 weeks after my surgery. Made out to Lucas. I felt the first real crack of betrayal. Not just emotional, but financial. This money was mine, not charity, not a gift. Compensation for pain and sacrifice. Legally meant for me. But I'd never seen a penny, no recliner to ease my sore back. No in-home nurse to help me in those first hard weeks. No rides to follow-ups. Not even a meal. Where had the money gone? I started looking elsewhere. I remembered Morgan had once boasted about using a local boutique travel agent. Someone exclusive. I searched my inbox and found an old email thread where she'd forwarded me a spa deal months ago. I clicked the link. It led to a luxury lifestyle agency, a password-protected portal, but the footer still included the agency's contact number. My fingers dialed before my brain could catch up. Hi, this is Eleanor Reid. My son and his wife may have booked a wellness package through your agency this spring. I believe my name might have been listed initially. I just wanted to confirm the booking. The woman on the line was polite. She pulled the record. Yes, a Lucas Clarendon. Paid in full. It was a 4-day package at the Moss Haven retreat. Spa treatments, private chef luxury SUV service. Oh, and a gift suite from Cartier. For Mrs. Clarendon's mother. My throat tightened. Her mother. So that's where it went. My marrow bought her mother a silk robe and a diamond bangle. I hung up. Silent. Still. The room spun slightly. Not from shock, but from the sickening clarity of it all. They hadn't just erased me from their lives. They'd cashed me in. It happened on a Wednesday afternoon. I was in my kitchen, boiling rice and humming Mahalia Jackson when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally I wouldn't pick up, but something in my spirit stirred. I answered. Hello. Hi, this is Nurse Griffin from St. Cecilia Memorial. The voice said quickly. Is this Priscilla Harmon? I blinked. No, baby. This is Eleanor Reid. A pause. Oh, I'm sorry. We were trying to reach Mr. Lucas Clarendon's emergency contact. He's been admitted to the ER after a fainting spell at work. Paramedics brought him in. He's stable now, but she kept talking, but her words faded into white noise. My knees buckled. I reached for the counter. He was in the hospital, and they hadn't called me. I asked where he was. She gave the room number. I got in my car so fast I forgot my cane. I drove like someone who'd lost time. She couldn't afford to lose. At the ER, I found him propped in bed, eyes closed, IV running through his arm. He looked pale, thinner than before. Morgan wasn't there yet, Priscilla either, just him and me. I sat beside him quietly, brushed the curls off his forehead. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to yell, to demand how he could erase me from something so basic, so human. But all I could do was look at my child, the one I'd carried twice now, once in my womb, once in my marrow, and feel my heart break in slow motion. When he stirred and saw me, his eyes widened with surprise, not relief. Mama, how did you? The nurse called the wrong number. I said flatly. I guess God intervened. He looked away, ashamed. I didn't mean for you to find out this way. You didn't mean for me to find out at all, I replied. You listed her mama over me. After everything. He didn't answer, just stared at the window like it had a better view than his guilt. I found the insurance paperwork, I continued, my voice calm, controlled, the donor's stipend, the one from my recovery. You cashed that check, Lucas, used it for spas and jewelry, for her mother, while I was lying in a recliner with a trash bag of frozen peas strapped to my spine. He flinched. Good. I didn't know how to say no to Morgan, he mumbled. She said you were strong, that you'd be fine. I stood. I am. But that doesn't make this right. He looked up. Mama. No, I said, sharper now. I didn't come here for apologies. I came here to say goodbye, because I had made another call before walking into that hospital, not to the police, not to a lawyer, but to the corporate insurance fraud line, the one listed in the fine print, the one that handles donor misuse investigations. He'd changed his emergency contact, now I had changed his reality. Lucas once told me I was too quiet when I was angry, said it used to scare him more than yelling ever could. He wasn't wrong. Because when I get quiet, I get calculating. The day after my visit to the ER, I faxed every document I had to the insurance company's Special Investigations Unit. My old bones may creak, but my memory doesn't. I wrote a clear, concise timeline, attached the disbursement notice, and even included the resort receipt and spa itinerary I'd pulled from the boutique travel agency. I dotted every I, crossed every T. And then I waited. 2 weeks later, a man named Mr. Delacroix called me. Said he was with the insurance company's internal fraud division. His tone was clipped and direct, the voice of someone who has seen too many families try to game the system. Miss Reid, he said, thank you for what you sent. We've opened a formal case. What your son and his wife did violates several provisions of our transplant donor care clause. I asked him what would happen next. We'll begin with an audit of the payment trail, he replied. And depending on what we find, we'll pursue restitution, potential legal consequences, possibly even notify his employer. Restitution, legal, employer. Each word landed like a gospel hymn. Lucas had used my marrow to buy himself comfort. I was about to use my silence to deliver him consequence. It wasn't petty. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. A reckoning. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't begged. I'd let the facts speak, and the facts. They spoke fluently in courtrooms and boardrooms. Within a month, I started hearing whispers. Lucas called once, voice shaking, not angry but scared. Said his accounts had been frozen. His job had suspended him pending an investigation. That the insurance company was threatening to recover the full amount, with penalties. He didn't ask me to fix it. He knew better. Morgan stopped calling entirely. I heard through a friend at church that she'd moved back in with her mother. The dream home was up for sale. The car was gone. The spa packages had been clawed back. Their world had unraveled the same way they had unraveled me, piece by quiet piece. I never raised my voice. I raised documentation. A few months later, a different letter arrived, from the insurance company. This one was kinder. Dear Miss Reid, it read as a gesture of goodwill, and in recognition of your extraordinary act of donation, we are extending a complimentary wellness retreat to you and a guest of your choosing. All expenses paid. It was to the same resort Morgan had sent her mother. Only now the suite was in my name. So here I sit, in a white robe, sipping hibiscus tea on a sun-drenched balcony. My sister snoozes in the room behind me. The air smells like salt and redemption. Lucas had erased me from his list. But the world it remembered.